to the realest sports talk show in the North. Game Time Sports Talk brought to you weekday afternoons from 1 till 3, right here on the Z, 1620 AM KYIZ, also on 1560 AM KZIZ, live streaming on the World Wide Web at www.ztwins.com and through various apps on your smartphones or tablets, including the TuneIn Radio app. Download it and take us with you wherever you go. In fact, with the TuneIn Radio Pro, you can record us and play us back later at your own convenience. But why would you want to do that when you can be involved? As we will be on the hotline at 206-325-1420 here shortly, as well as at 206-329-7881. The hotlines are full. But before we get there, I'd like to thank our proud sponsors at the Muckleshoot Casino in Auburn, the biggest and best in the Northwest, and get all the latest promotions, entertainment, and dining specials at MuckleshootCasino.com. The Muckleshoot Casino in Auburn, the biggest and best in the Northwest, and proud sponsors here of the realest sports talk show in the Northwest. Game Time Sports Talk brought to you weekday afternoons from 1 till 3. Looking forward to seeing you down here at 2600 South Jackson Street in Seattle, our drop-off location for our annual holiday food drive. Bring your non-perishable food items, turkeys, and or cash donations down to 2600 South Jackson Street in Seattle tomorrow from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. We'll be collecting those for the less fortunate and underprivileged in our communities. It's another community service from KRIZ, KYIZ, and KZIZ, along with the Seattle Medium newspaper group, as service to the community is indeed our most important product. KB back in here shortly. Big P, of course, always crashing the boards. JB here with you as we go to the hotline and find Commando Day. Game time. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, JB?
How you doing, brother?
Man, good. Where'd KB go?
You know, KB always on the fence. Wherever you look, just look for the fence, and that's where you'll find him.
Good answer.
There you go.
Anyway, good to know Big P's always crashing the board, so that he got KB back on that deal, man. I wish I could be there for the food drive, but you gave an amen to Deep Throat, and I'll just give him another amen because he said everything that needs to be said about the food drive, man. I couldn't add anything more to that. Man, right quick, you know the problem with Michael Douglas playing a despicable character like Gordon Gekko in the movie Wall Street? Is that when Gordon Gekko says greed is good, Michael Douglas makes it look too good. He makes it look too cool. And so I say all that to get to the point of, at the heart of the NFL's ambiguity on the concussion issue is just money. You know, the reason, and the only reason in my estimation, is the NFL is making such a conscious effort on the safety in the past few seasons, and we're going to see a lot more this season and the seasons to come, is because Roger Goodell realized the league was unconscious in the past as far as the safety goes, and now that guys are coming out with all these different problems up to and including death, it's just ridiculous, or in the word of Mike Tyson, ludicrous, to not make the connection between the two just because you don't want to compensate past players. You know, there's been a lot of speculation, JB, that some of these guys are just getting involved with the lawsuit just as a money grab. But the problem is, and that could be, however, the problem with a lot of past players, they don't know when something's going to pop up on them. You guys mentioned my friend Dave Durson, rest in peace. Man, you don't know how much that hurt my heart to know that Dave Durson, number one, was struggling with that, and number two, the manner in which he took his life. But then, you know, as we talked about before, man, being the type of player to leave a note to say, hey, I was not right, check my brain. Same thing with Junior Seau. And so it's great and everything for the league to put all these new rules in that are still very slanted towards the offense, but those are two defensive players that took their lives. And so I don't know how this thing is going to play out, but I don't like the way that it's playing out.
I think that's well said there, and I think that you spoke eloquently on that and talking about it, how much the NFL even stands to lose. And on your point as far as wondering about those 4,000 former players and whether it's a money grab or not. I don't think it has anything to do with the money. I think anything that they get, they'll say, okay, cool, I'll take that. But I think it's more about the principle of the matter, and to see, of course, their fallen friends, if you will, that have gone down to this, and the NFL's, arrogance and turning a cheek,
right.
And in fact turning their head to this. So I think it's a lot more about principle as far as putting their name on that lawsuit rather than trying to get a money grab. Because look, you can split a pie as much as you want. I don't care how big or how good it tastes, 4,000 ways. You're not going to get exactly what you're talking about as far as from a compensation standpoint. And I'll just say that, and you're right. And the reason why I guess Roger Goodell and the NFL is trying to CYA right now is because of all the really billions of dollars that they do stand to lose if of course these lawsuits do go against them and in the favor of the former players.
Yeah, and the thing is, before things get to lawsuits, you should just be able to reach some type of amicable resolution that somehow the current players union can be involved in, because by the time you get to lawsuits, it's just unfortunate and it's out of hand, and too much money. A lot of times, more money goes to the attorneys than it goes really helping either party. Man, let me move on right quick. You said on Russell Wilson, huh?
No, I was going to say, especially as long as this is definitely planning out. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. You said on Russell Wilson right quick, JB, that what he brings to the Seahawks can't be measured, but then you went on to list a great deal of good measurements as far as what Russell Wilson does bring to the Seattle Seahawks. And I'll say this, Russell Wilson's contribution to the Seahawks, in addition to everything that you said, will be measured the same way everything else is measured in the NFL, and that's get to the playoffs.
Okay.
And so everything that you said measures out great, for not getting to the playoffs. But then, man, if he gets this team to the playoffs, that then becomes a uniquely measurable measurement of what a rookie quarterback beating out a free agent and really settling down this offense on a long-term basis means for the Seattle Seahawks, thanks to Russell Wilson.
I agree. I completely agree on that. And the only thing that maybe will supersede it as far as this story will be what's going on in Indianapolis with Andrew Luck. And that's based on Manning leaving and what they had last year without Manning as far as their record. Obviously, the inspirational story with Pagano there battling leukemia is another thing that'll just help to overshadow that. But just the turnaround that's happened there and the lack of expectations. There was expectations regardless of who was under center for the Seattle Seahawks team. Us here locally, we could definitely see that. Nationally, Russell Wilson has already been recognized. Some knuckleheads, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm trying to be kind today on Friday.
Right.
For their own stubbornness, they just will refuse, regardless of what Russell Wilson continues to prove, to acknowledge that he's a big part of the Seattle Seahawks' success. So if the Indianapolis Colts do make the playoffs, that's probably the only thing that'll supersede it. But you're absolutely right. Everything else on every other account. As I bring KB back into the program, I found Big Pete went and got him off the fence. Some of his last little prognostications down. Apparently they've worked out in his favor this year. But yeah, that's where I'm at on that as far as Indianapolis and the Andrew Luck situation, along with Chuck Pagano. That's the only thing that can maybe even shadow what Russell Wilson is in the midst of doing.
Yeah, and overshadow it on a league-wide basis. But when we put it back down to what he brings to the Seattle Seahawks, man, we were looking at some very dim years as far as the quarterback position. We've been looking at in the last couple of years. I mean, we had DeForest Jackson, and we had dude holding the clipboard, whatever you guys called him, Charlie Whitehurst, and didn't really know where this position was going. And so just to have Russell Wilson giving this team a vision for the future with the defense that they put together, for just the Seattle Seahawks, not a league-wide thing that you were just talking about, man. That's just big time as far as I'm concerned.
Are you ready to call him the franchise QB for the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, and if he's not, I don't know why anyone else wouldn't be. When what better franchise quarterback can you have than have a guy that you drafted and then bringing him along in the seasons to come. So if this season to me is just a glimpse of what he's going to be to this team in the seasons to come, and particularly from his draft status, because of course we all go back with Rick Meyer, who was supposed to have been that franchise quarterback, such a high draft pick, and then all the guys that have been since then trying to just be Jim Zorn to the Seahawks again. So yeah, I look at this as Russell Wilson being that franchise quarterback without a doubt.
It's taken 20 years for the franchise to recover from that. They were scared to pick a quarterback there after that. And well, that's one of the reasons why I'm somewhat hesitant on saying that I'm ready to call him the franchise quarterback right now, just because of what has happened to some certain quarterbacks in the past. I mean, you threw out the perfect name there when you talked about Rick Meyer, who was the AFC Offensive Rookie of the Year in his first year, and what we all know what happened after that. Another name I can bring up is a guy that I believe Tennessee thought was their franchise quarterback, in Vince Young. And where is he right now? So, I mean, I don't know if I want to put that moniker on somebody this early in their career, but I'll tell you right now, it's been a heck of a start. Right?
And let me add this into what you just said. That's why I said draft status. Because when you take a look at guys like Rick Meyer, you take a look at Jamarcus Russell, you take a look at Vince Young that you just mentioned.
Or Cam Newton now.
Those guys come in with so much pressure on them. These guys you're trying to save the franchise, and you're coming in with such Rick Meyer, the second pick overall. Come on, we look back at that guy and know that's just a joke draft in terms of where he wound up his career being. So the difference is Russell Wilson, he didn't come in with all of those expectations, but he had the expectation of how he could play, and based on that, he's risen his game to an expectation that even we didn't have for him. Whereas everyone, the other players that we talked about, the expectation was so great. A lot of times, those guys, unless you Dan Marino and Peyton Manning or Elway, those types of guys, far and few between those guys really rise up to those expectations. Vince Young, we see where that already has gone. Jamarcus Russell, we see where that has gone. And the jury's still out, for Cam Newton, of course, and other players.
There you go.
Man, right quick, Huskies, as I said last week, Utah hadn't been running with the pack long enough to beat the Dogs, and good thing they didn't. And let's just hope that your analysis of Colorado from earlier will prove that they haven't been in the league long enough, or the conference running with the pack long enough to beat the Dogs tomorrow either. Right quick, man, since the Seahawks have that bye week, I will touch right quick before we get to the prognostication of the Godfather Tony Rome, and hopefully he's going to put it down for the game timers as only the Godfather Tony Rome can. I said I was going to mention the arena situation because we just launched the 5th season of the Sonics MIA campaign, that SeattleSonicsMIA.com.
Right.
And, I'm probably one of the last holdouts as far as I can say true blue, but I'll say true green Sonic fans that really just is not liking the way that this thing is playing out as far as the arena goes. Nothing's changed from my position in terms of what I have studied and seen as far as the MOU and the legalities behind the paragraph 6, as I've pointed out before, and all the stipulations that must be met in order for a team being that's playing in Seattle that can be called the Sonics. And the funny thing about what Chris Hansen has said is that he doesn't want to, circumvent the law in terms of what Chris Van Dyke had, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, what Chris Van Dyke had initiated. But the funny thing about it is that the city of Seattle, along with the county, is letting him circumvent a couple of city ordinances Most importantly, the City Ordinance 122736, which really replaced City Ordinance 122492, which was the premise and occupancy ordinance, which held the lease requirements there at Key Arena. And as a result of that, City Ordinance 122736 then became law back in '08, and that now, that law pretty much is tied into the MOU that the City of Seattle signed off on, along with Clayton Bennett's group. And so, from what I see, from what I hear, from a sports fan, and I've said this before, as a Seattle sports fan, having an arena down in that area would be cool. As a Seattle Sonics fan, I really just don't like it, because for two reasons. One, when we talk about tradition and whatnot, it's almost like the Husky Stadium, where if the athletic director came out, Scott Woodward, said, "Oh yeah, we're going to redo the Husky Stadium, but I tell you what, the downside is it's going to be over in West Seattle." It's almost the same thing to me. I'm call me a brat Sonics fan, but I really do not want to go to a Sonics game. Well, it won't be the Sonics. That's my second point. I don't want to go to an NBA game without, walking under the Space Needle, as the tradition has always been. But the second thing is, from what I can see, from what I've heard, and everything I've read about what Chris Hansen has addressed in terms of the Sonics name and the colors and the history and whatnot, and I even asked the mayor on another show point blank about it, and all he could say was the he had nothing for me. And so the arena that goes, and then the other part of it is, as I've said before, if you're going to talk about redoing Key Arena, man, that's for the city of Seattle at large, and then the small constituency of sports fans like us along with it. And man, nobody's going to have a problem with that. But and now we're seeing a lawsuit and everything, all the monkey wrenches that are getting thrown in this thing, just from the standpoint of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And so we'll see how it plays out. I mean, that's my take right now. And I know you're up against the clock and whatnot, and you probably want to have some commentary on that as well. But that's where I'm sitting on. As far as the sports fan activist, going back to 1999, launching WeTheFans.com in the midst of the NBA lockout, that all these dominoes have played out in the last 13 years or so to the Sonics, this whole Sonic situation, and the way that this naming thing is going, and with the Kings popping up and all these different things on the table, I see this completely the same as the Seahawks Stadium played out, with two things. One, the naming rights, where it was going to be Seahawks Stadium, and next thing we know, we've had two different names of a perfectly named stadium, which is why I never call it anything but Seahawks Stadium. But more importantly, it reminds me of when the rhetoric was, "Oh yeah, it's going to be grass. Oh yeah, it's going to be grass. Oh yeah, it's going to be grass. Oh yeah, well, it's field turf." And so I see this thing playing out the same way. It will be good to get NBA back in Seattle, but the battle has always been, to me, the Seattle NBA versus the Seattle Sonics. And Chris Hansen, I'm convinced, is not looking to bring the Seattle Sonics back. He's merely looking to bring the NBA back to Seattle.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that's a load right there, and it's going to be a lot. A lot still has to take place in the meantime, of course, for us to go ahead and make that assertion. But for everything that you said and everything up to this point, until we have something else, that is factual, you're right. I think your assessment is right. Of course, you can follow it more at SonicsMIA.com. Commando, that's a great take on the arena situation. I'll definitely take that into consideration as far as looking forward. But I'm still hopeful. You know this, my man.
Oh, I am too. And Seattle Sonics MIA.com. Thank you, JB. But listen to me. I've never wanted to be or hoped I was wrong, and I mean dead wrong, about anything else before in my life. So I don't say that, with a whole bunch of, pumping my, beat my chest and pumping my chest up or push, that type of thing. I just say that from the standpoint, man, I'm a sports fan activist, yeah, and this is the kind of stuff that have dedicated, what I do as far as the sports community, and this is how I see it.
And you know what? A Seattle sports fan at that, so you basically got to prepare yourself for disappointment. So, I
Right.
definitely do hear you. Hey, Commando, last shout-outs, brother.
Man, my last shout-outs definitely have to go to the Seattle Seahawks. Way to hang in there. Some coulda, shoulda, woulda games, but for 10 games in the book, 6-4 is a nice place to be coming down the stretch. Washington Huskies, you guys are coming down the stretch looking real nice, particularly going down to Colorado tomorrow. And Tony Rome, you know what to do, buddy.
Represent. Dave, always good to hear from you, my man. Have a great weekend, and we'll definitely catch you on the other side.
Roger that, JB. Thank you, KB.